I want you to imagine, just for a moment, that you are sitting in this massive open-air stone theater.
Hmm.
The Mediterranean sun is just beating down on you. And it's the year 414 BC.
Right.
You're right in the heart of Athens. And down on the stage, you hear the music of wooden flutes starting to play. And suddenly, this giant chorus of men wearing these elaborate, brightly painted bird masks.
And feathered costumes, yeah.
Exactly, full feathered costumes. They come rushing out, they're singing, they're dancing, and they are plotting an absolutely absurd scheme.
It really is.
They want to build a walled city in the clouds to completely overthrow the gods of Olympus. I mean, they are plotting to build a literal wall in the sky.
Which sounds completely ridiculous today.
Right, but why are they doing it? Because
Right.
they are just exhausted. And, if you've ever wanted to just delete all your news apps, move to a cabin in the woods, and escape the relentless chaos of modern life.
Which I think we all have at some point.
Oh, absolutely. If you felt that, you are going to understand exactly why this 2,400-year-old comedy is actually this powerful mirror of your own heart.
The visual alone is striking, but the psychological state of the people watching it is what truly makes the scene resonate.
Yeah.
Because that exhaustion you just mentioned,
Yeah.
that is the defining characteristic of the entire city at that moment in time.
And that's exactly what today's stack of sources tackles. We are looking at a translated script of Aristophanes' comedic masterpiece, The Birds, but we're pairing it with this incredibly deep, really multi-layered academic and theological analysis.
Yeah, it's a fascinating
It
combination.
really is, because the analysis breaks down the linguistics of the play, the historical pressure cooker it was written in, and surprisingly, its profound relationship to the biblical canon.
Which is not something you'd expect from a Greek comedy.
Not at all. So the mission for this deep dive today is to explore how this ancient pagan story about a bird city in the sky can actually sharpen your spiritual discernment. We want to see how it can deepen your faith and inspire you to love and live for Christ more fully in your daily life.
Yeah.
But to understand how a comedy can do all that, we have to look at the world it was born into. Because Athens in 414 DC was, it was a city on the edge of a complete nervous breakdown.
That is honestly an understatement. I mean, Athens is right in the middle of the Peloponnesian War.
Which was brutal.
Oh, it's a grueling, decades-long conflict against Sparta. We are talking about a civilization-defining war.
Oh.
So by the time this play hits the stage, the citizens have been living in a state of high alert for years.
Right.
They've already survived this horrific plague that wiped out a massive portion of their population.
Including their greatest leader. Right.
Heracles. Yeah,
Human.
Heracles. And, the trauma of that alone would break a society, but they're also dealing with severe financial strain. The empire's just bleeding money to fund the military.
And the sources point out that right around the time this play goes into production, Athens has launched this incredibly reckless military campaign.
The Sicilian expedition.
Yeah, the Sicilian expedition. It's a massive gamble. And the political infighting back home is just toxic.
Right, yeah.
People are stressed, they're heavily taxed to pay for this fleet, and the vaunted Athenian democracy has essentially devolved into a paranoid surveillance state.
Oh, for sure.
Everyone is obsessed with endless lawsuits, and there are professional informants around practically every corner.
I mean, just imagine living in a culture where your neighbor might drag you to court on some trumped-up charge just to seize your property.
Jeez.
Or where speaking against the latest military blunder could literally get you exiled.
So everyone is just walking on eggshells.
Exactly. The psychological toll is immense. The air is thick with suspicion, war weariness, and just a deep, pervasive anxiety about the future.
Which honestly makes the opening scene of The Birds so brilliant.
It really does.
The play starts, and we meet these two grumpy, middle-aged Athenian guys named Pistateris and Eualpides, and they are just done. They are physically fleeing the city. Our sources highlight that they are wandering through this wild, desolate country, climbing over rocks, and they are specifically looking for a way out of the daily grind of lawsuits and politics.
They're not looking to be heroes.
No, they aren't looking for adventure at all. They just want to find a quiet place to exist without someone, handing them a subpoena.
Yeah, and they are searching for Tereus. He's this mythical king who, according to Greek legend, was transformed into a hoopoe bird.
A hoopoe bird, got it.
Aristophanes refers to him as epops. And their logic here is wonderfully simple, right? Since Tereus used to be a human but now lives among the birds, he's seen the world from multiple perspectives.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, so he might know of some cozy, quiet, stress-free town where a couple of retired guys can just, well, live in peace.
Right.
They literally say they want a place where the biggest problem is deciding whose house to go to for a wedding feast.
Sounds like a dream. But the irony is, the moment they actually escape the city and start talking to the birds, they don't just settle down and build a little cabin.
No, of course not.
Pisistratus gets this wildly ambitious idea. He looks up at the birds flying around and essentially says, stop flying around aimlessly, you need to organize.
He becomes a consultant.
Exactly. He tells them you need to build a giant fortified city right here in the air, and he names it Nephelokosija.
Which we translate as Cloudcuckooland.
Right, Cloudcuckooland. But the goal isn't just to have a nice place to live. The goal is to build a massive wall between earth and heaven.
And the strategic implications of that wall are where the comedy really escalates.
Oh, absolutely.
Because in ancient Greek religion, the gods required the savory smoke of burning sacrifices from human beings to sustain themselves.
It's like an economy of worship.
Exactly. Humans burn the meat, the smoke drifts up to Olympus, and the gods are fed and happy. So they grant favors to the humans in return.
So by building a wall in the clouds, Pisistratus is proposing a cosmic blockade. Like, when humans burn sacrifices, the smoke will hit the bottom of Cloudcuckooland and get trapped. The gods will literally starve, and the birds can force Olympus into total submission. It's a siege tactic.
It is the ultimate hostile takeover. I mean, he is weaponizing the very mechanics of their religion.
You know, I see this dynamic all the time today.
Really? How so?
Well, it reminds me of the modern urge we all have for a digital detox.
Oh, sure.
You look at the chaotic news cycle, the endless political fighting on social media, the economic anxiety, and you just think, I'm going to move off the grid, I'm going to buy some land, raise chickens, and just escape the madness.
Right.
But the second Pisistratus gets off the grid, he ruins his own peaceful utopia by immediately trying to become an emperor.
Yeah, he can't help himself.
Doesn't this suggest that, you can escape the physical city, but you can't escape human ambition? Like, you take the problem with you because you are the problem.
That underlying truth is the engine of the entire play.
Yeah.
And Aristophanes knew his audience perfectly.
He had to, right?
Yeah, and the setting of this performance is critical for understanding its impact. Because The Birds was put on during the city Dionysia, which was a major civic and religious festival honoring the god Dionysus.
Okay, so a big deal.
Huge deal. This wasn't just a weekend entertainment option, It was a sacred gathering of the entire city-state.
Wow.
And during this specific festival, satire was ritually licensed.
Meaning they were allowed to make fun of things.
Exactly. The culture created a designated safe space for the citizens to mock the very war policies, the democratic flaws, and the corrupt leaders that were making their lives miserable.
So Aristophanes is basically using this grand feathered fantasy to hold up a mirror to the crowd.
Yes. The comedy only lands because the audience recognizes their own reflection.
Oh, man.
They see their own flawed leaders, their own greed, and their own relentless, exhausting ambitions manifesting right there in the actions of Pisistratus.
That's brilliant.
He starts as the relatable everyman who just wants a break, and within a few scenes he becomes the exact kind of manipulative tyrant he was fleeing from back in Athens.
So the audience is sitting there essentially laughing at their own hubris.
Yes.
But the sources we are looking at point out that Aristophanes doesn't just rely on the plot to pull them into the joke.
No, he goes much deeper.
Right. He uses some incredibly sophisticated linguistic mechanics to mess with their perception of reality.
He really does.
Our sources dive deep into this structural element of Old Greek comedy called the parabasis. But before we look at the grammar side of it, explain the physical staging of the parabasis. What is actually happening in the theater at this moment?
So the parabasis is the defining architectural feature of old comedy.
Okay.
Right in the middle of the play, the narrative suddenly halts, like completely stops. The main actors physically leave the stage.
Just walk off.
Just walk off. Then the chorus, in this instance, these 24 men sweating inside these elaborate, brightly painted bird masks and heavy costumes steps forward.
I can just picture it.
Yeah, they physically approach the edge of the stage, closing the distance between the performers and the crowd.
Okay.
And then they completely break the illusion of the play, drop the dramatic narrative, and speak directly to the audience on behalf of the playwright.
It's like the ancient equivalent of Ferris Bueller or Deadpool breaking the fourth wall today.
Exactly.
They turn to the camera, pause the story, and make the audience feel like they are in on the joke, like they are co-conspirators.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at the linguistic analysis in our sources, which draws on a framework called systemic functional linguistics, or SFL, it seems like Aristophanes is doing something much more subversive than just winking at the camera.
Oh, definitely.
He's actively manipulating the audience's sense of time and reality using the Greek tense system, specifically the aorist tense. Am I reading that right?
You absolutely are.
How does that actually work mechanically? Because, grammar usually puts people to sleep, but the sources frame this as a literal psychological weapon.
It absolutely is a psychological weapon.
Yeah.
To understand the mechanism, we have to look at how verbal aspect works in Greek, which this SFL framework maps out beautifully.
Okay, lay it on me.
When the chorus of birds steps forward, they begin by recounting their mythic history. They claim that they are the ultimate primordial beings, born from chaos and night, long before the earth or the gods of Olympus even existed.
Okay, so setting up their backstory.
Right. And when they are telling this origin story, they use what are called aorist verbs.
So, how does an aorist verb feel to the listener compared to the present tense?
Well, the aorist aspect signifies perfective action, and crucially, it creates a sense of profound remoteness.
Remoteness.
Yeah, think of it like looking at a faded black and white photograph from the 1800s.
Okay, I like that.
You know, it happened,
Yeah.
but it is locked away in this untouchable past. It pushes the action into the distant background.
Right.
So the birds are using the aorist tense to say, once upon a time, in an age before time began, we were born from the void. It feels ancient, mythic, and entirely separate from the audience's current reality.
Okay, so the aorist pushes the myth away. It creates distance.
Exactly. But then, right after establishing this ancient pedigree, the birds suddenly pivot.
Oh.
They look the audience in the eyes and start telling them what they should do right now.
Ah.
Listen to us, believe in us, take us as your new gods. And when they do this, they completely abandon the aorist tense and switch to present tense imperfective verbs.
Wow. So if the aorist is the faded photograph, the imperfective is like someone grabbing you by the collar and shaking you. It's a live video feed.
That is a perfect analogy. The imperfective aspect creates an intense feeling of proximity, intimacy, and unfolding action.
Yeah.
The linguistic whiplash is totally intentional. The aorist verbs distance the old myths, making them feel established but removed. While the sudden flood of present tense verbs makes the impossible fantasy of the bird city feel immediate, urgent, and totally viable.
That's crazy.
The grammar reaches off the stage and pulls the audience right into the present tense of the fantasy.
I love that breakdown of the mechanics, but let me push back for a second.
Sure.
We are talking about a theater full of thousands of rowdy Athenians who have probably been drinking wine all day at the festival of Dionysus.
Almost certainly, yes.
Right. So isn't this linguistic stuff just a cheap theatrical trick? Like a clever way for a playwright to command attention and get a laugh?
Yeah.
How does this granular manipulation of verbs actually affect the worldview of the person sitting in the stands?
It's a fair question, but the temporary alteration of reality is the entire point of the exercise.
Okay.
By pulling the viewer directly into the conversation using these specific discourse choices, the play creates a shared communal pagan fantasy. The linguistic proximity forces the audience to participate in the illusion. It makes the impossible, the idea of flawed human beings and birds overthrowing the divine order, feel triumphant.
Oh, wow.
For a few minutes, the audience is invited to celebrate a reality where human cleverness, manipulation, and ambition can successfully conquer the gods.
It makes it feel real.
Exactly. The language makes the rebellion feel plausible. And this, as the source analysis points out, sets up a devastating collision when you hold this play up against a biblical worldview.
Which is really the pivot point of the entire analysis. If Aristophanes is using grammar to actively pull his audience into this chaotic, self-exalting fantasy, it forces us to ask, what happens when you hold that fantasy up against the ultimate ordered reality of the biblical narrative?
Right.
Let's look at how the creation accounts collide. In the parabasis we were just discussing, the birds claim this primordial status. The sources note they are parodying Hesiod's theogony, which was like the standard Greek origin myth.
Yes, the classic text.
Right. The birds claim that from a mixing of chaos, night, and a swirling vortex, they were hatched before the gods even existed.
Which is typical because the Greek creation myth is fundamentally rooted in chaos and struggle.
It's always a mess. Right.
Always. Entities are born out of a dark void, usually through violent or just bizarre means, and they immediately begin fighting for dominance.
Yeah.
Now, if we contrast that with the biblical account in Genesis 1, the difference in the foundational understanding of reality is profound.
Completely different.
Look at Genesis 1:27-21, describing the fifth day of creation. God simply speaks. He commands the waters to teem with life and the birds to fly across the vault of the sky.
There is no swirling vortex.
No.
There is no chaotic struggle for power. God speaks, and reality obeys.
Exactly. The birds in Genesis aren't primordial powers born of chaos. They're contingent creatures.
Right.
They are part of a perfectly ordered, beautifully orchestrated cosmos created by a sovereign, good God.
It's peaceful.
Yes. The biblical worldview emphasizes order originating from divine rational speech. The play's worldview, while played for comic effect, taps into a deeply pagan assumption
Which is?
that the universe is fundamentally chaotic and any divine hierarchy can be overturned if you are just strong enough or clever enough.
It's a universe of chaos versus a universe of perfect order.
Exactly.
And this contrast gets even sharper, like almost painfully sharp when we look at the climax of the play, because the birds in Pistateris actually succeed.
They pull it off.
They build this massive wall in the sky, Nephelokasigia. They blockade heaven, and the sources draw a brilliant, detailed parallel between this architectural rebellion and the Tower of Babel in Genesis 11.
The Tower of Babel is the ultimate biblical diagnosis of human hubris.
Right.
Following the flood, humanity unites. They have one language, one shared purpose, and they settle in the land of Shinar. And they decide to build a city and a tower with its top in the heavens. But their motivation is key here.
Why do they do it?
They do it to make a name for themselves and to prevent being dispersed over the earth. They're trying to secure their own significance and safety completely independent of God's command.
They are building a ziggurat, basically a synthetic mountain to force their way up to the divine realm.
Yes.
And the biblical response is immediate. God comes down, confuses their language, and scatters them in judgment.
Right.
The text is a definitive statement that any human attempt to usurp divine authority or build a utopian empire without God will inevitably collapse into confusion.
But in the birds, the exact opposite happens. The human attempt to build a wall in the sky totally works.
It's crazy.
They essentially build a toll booth on the stairway to heaven.
That toll booth analogy is hilarious because it really highlights the absurdity of the pagan gods.
It does.
Pistateris locks the gods out, he intercepts all the barbecue smoke from the sacrifices down on Earth, and the mighty gods of Olympus are literally starved into surrendering.
Yep.
The comedy relies on the idea that human trickery can completely outmaneuver divine sovereignty.
And the comedy works because the pagan gods are essentially just amplified humans.
Right. They're not holy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They have the same appetites, the same flaws, and the same vulnerabilities as the people in Athens. They just happen to have thunderbolts.
Just bigger weapons.
Right. So starving them out is a completely logical tactic in that worldview.
Wow.
But this raises a vital question for you, the listener, as you evaluate the media you consume. What do these two different narratives reveal about our underlying beliefs regarding human flourishing?
That's the big question.
The pagan comedy celebrates chaotic human hubris. It suggests that if you are clever enough, if you can just hack the system, you can defeat the divine order and win.
It glorifies the rebel.
Yes, it absolutely glorifies the rebel. But the biblical narrative diagnoses this exact same ambition, the desire to build a tower to the heavens as the very root of human division, misery, and pain.
Yeah.
The Tower of Babel isn't a comedy where the clever humans outsmart a grumpy deity. It's a tragedy of pride that leads to alienation.
So true.
The Bible offers a reality where human flourishing comes not from a clever rebellion against the Creator, but from submission, obedience, and trust in His ordered goodness.
And if you want to see what happens when that rebellion succeeds, you just have to look at the end of the play.
Oh, it gets dark.
It does. Because the way Pistateris secures his final victory is incredibly brutal. He doesn't just build a peaceful city, he becomes the ultimate hostile takeover artist.
Yes, he does.
The gods send a delegation to negotiate the surrender, and Pistateris absolutely dismantles them. He out-negotiates Poseidon, and then he physically bullies a god named Tribalus.
Now, Tribalus is a fascinating inclusion.
Yeah.
He is a barbarian god representing the Thracian tribes to the north. In the play, he can barely speak proper Greek, mostly just grunting.
Okay, so it's a caricature.
Exactly. Aristophanes uses him to mock the idea of foreign deities,
Mm-hmm.
and Pistataris easily intimidates him because Tribalus doesn't understand the complex diplomatic maneuvering.
He just steamrolls him.
Totally steamrolls.
And then there is Heracles. Now, Heracles is renowned for his strength, but in Greek comedy, he is almost always portrayed as an uncontrollable glutton.
Just always eating.
Right. And Pisistratus exploits this perfectly. He's cooking a massive feast during the negotiations, and the smell of the roasting meat completely distracts Heracles.
He can't focus.
He can't. Heracles is so hungry, he essentially sells out the entire Olympian pantheon just to get a plate of food.
It's hilarious, but sad.
And the ultimate prize Pisistratus demands. He wins the hand of a divine figure named Basileia, which translates directly to dominion or supremacy, and he forces Zeus to hand over the actual thunderbolts. A tired Athenian retiree ascends as the supreme, unchallengeable ruler of the universe.
It's wild. But we have to look closely at what he is cooking at that wedding feast while he is negotiating with Heracles.
Oh man, this is the darkest, most cynical joke in the entire play.
It really is.
He is literally roasting rebel birds, the very creatures he supposedly came to help. The ones who provided the labor to build his wall, the ones who dared to oppose his new tyrannical empire, are being fried up and served on a platter.
Yep.
He has become a cannibalistic dictator.
His ascent to absolute power requires violence, manipulation, the subjugation of foreign powers, and the literal consumption of his political enemies.
It's awful.
It is the apex of worldly triumph. And this is where the theological critique from our sources brings in a stunning, almost breathtaking New Testament contrast.
Right.
They specifically point the reader to Philippians 2:5-11.
The famous Christ hymn written by the Apostle Paul.
Precisely. Let's look at the mechanics of these two ascensions.
Okay.
In the play, the pagan hero achieves his happy ending by grasping for power. He climbs upward, he blockades heaven, he starves his superiors, and he exalts himself at the direct expense of those beneath him. His trajectory is aggressively upward.
Always climbing.
Yes. But Paul, writing to the Philippians, describes the true Savior achieving ultimate victory through the exact opposite motion.
The opposite.
Christ, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped or exploited for his own advantage.
The theological term is kenosis, right? The self-emptying.
Yes, exactly, kenosis.
Yeah.
Instead of grasping for more, Christ empties himself. He descends. He takes the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men.
Wow.
And being found in human form, he humbles himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross.
Such a stark contrast.
It is. Pisistratus claws his way up the cosmic ladder over the bodies of his friends to become a false god. Christ steps down from the highest throne in the cosmos to become a servant, washing the feet of his followers and dying for his enemies.
It's the ultimate contrast in trajectories, the king of pride versus the king of humility.
Absolutely.
But, let me challenge this application a bit.
Go for it.
It is very easy for us to sit here, look back at an ancient Greek play and say, oh, well, that's just ancient prideful paganism. How barbaric. I'm glad we've moved past that.
Right.
But if we are honest, don't we still celebrate the Pisistratus archetype in our culture today?
Oh, without a doubt.
Like the ruthless CEO who crushes the competition, the clever tech disruptor who hacks the regulatory system to build an empire, the politician who uses opposition as stepping stones. We write biographies about that guy. We give him magazine covers.
We absolutely do. The cultural wardrobe has changed, but the fundamental human impulse remains identical.
It hasn't changed at all.
Not one bit.
Yeah.
And that is exactly why the source material argues this play is such a vital tool for deepening a Christian's faith today.
Oh, I see.
That human desire to build Cloudcuckooland, to secure our own supremacy, to control our environment, to insulate ourselves from suffering by gaining power over others, it hasn't changed in 2,400 years.
No.
We still naturally admire the person who can outsmart the system.
Yeah, we all have a little Pisistratus inside of us, right? Trying to build our own little empires at the office or in our neighborhoods.
Yes, and that is the danger. But by seeing this ancient, stark contrast between worldly exaltation seizing power by any means necessary and Christological exaltation, you are powerfully reminded of the radical, upside-down nature of the gospel.
It really puts it in perspective.
It acts as a profound gut check. In Philippians, Paul says, "Have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus."
Right.
Understanding this contrast challenges you in your daily life to ask, when I feel exhausted, when I feel threatened, am I trying to climb the ladder of pride to protect myself? Or am I trusting God enough to walk the descending path of Christ-like humility?
That reframes the entire way you look at success.
It really does.
And it brings up another major theme, the play tackles, which is the concept of unity.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Because if we are being completely fair to Pisthaterus and his feathered workforce, they do achieve a pretty remarkable level of unity in the play.
They do, yeah.
You have all these different species of birds, hawks, owls, songbirds, birds that in the natural world would hunt and eat each other, and these grumpy Athenian humans all laying down their differences to work together seamlessly to build this massive fortified wall in the clouds.
Right.
It's a massive collaborative effort.
They do achieve a form of unity, but as with anything in this play, we have to look at the mechanics of how that unity is achieved and what its ultimate purpose is.
Okay, fair point.
The source analysis connects this false unity back to the biblical trajectory we started discussing earlier, moving from the disaster at Babel to the glorious resolution in the New Testament, specifically Acts chapter 2 and the day of Pentecost.
Okay, let's unpack that bridge. We talked about Babel being the scattering. How does the arrival of the Holy Spirit at Pentecost fit into a comedy about a bird blockade?
Well, at Babel, human ambition led to confused languages.
Right.
The attempt to build a unifying monument to themselves resulted in total fragmentation. But at Pentecost, we see the miraculous biblical reversal of that curse.
We're reversible.
Yes. The believers are gathered in Jerusalem, the Holy Spirit comes down with the sound of a rushing wind, and suddenly divided tongues are united.
Oh, wow.
The apostles speak, and people from dozens of different nations, Parthians, Medes, Egyptians, Romans, can all hear the wonders of God declared in their own native languages.
So Pentecost is the healing of the wound created at Babel.
Beautifully said, yes.
The language barrier is overcome not by humans learning a new vocabulary, but by a divine translation.
Exactly. And the theological takeaway here, when contrasted with the play, is profound.
Okay, let's hear it.
Think about how unity is formed in Cloudcuckooland. In Aristophanes' pagan fantasy, unity is achieved by locking heaven out.
Right.
It's a unity based entirely on mutual rebellion, mutual grievance, and building a defensive wall to secure their own power against a common enemy.
It's an us versus them mentality.
Completely. The birds and humans are only united by their shared hatred of the Olympian gods.
Which means it's a fragile, violent unity. The second the gods are defeated, Pisthaterus turns on the birds and starts cooking them.
Precisely. But in the New Testament, true lasting community is never achieved by human blockades or shared hatred. It is only achieved by heaven coming down.
Wow.
The unity of the church is not forged by keeping the divine out, but by the radical indwelling of the Holy Spirit in the hearts of believers.
The play's unity is built on exclusion.
Yes.
You build a wall, you keep the gods out, and you punish anyone who dissents. But the gospel's unity is built on inclusion, the Spirit drawing all tribes, tongues, and nations together under the lordship of a humble king.
Exactly right.
That is a beautiful distinction. But, understanding the stark contrast brings up a really thorny historical issue that our sources dive into.
Let's get into it.
Knowing how deeply opposed this pagan worldview is to the gospel, how did the early Christians actually view this kind of entertainment? Because I'm guessing the first century church wasn't buying season tickets to the Dionysia.
Far from it. The sources bring in a fascinating historical and sociological angle regarding the early church fathers. Leaders like Tertullian, writing his treatise De Spectaculis around 200 AD, and John Chrysostom, the golden-mouthed preacher of the late 4th century.
What did they say?
They vehemently condemned pagan theater. They preached fiery sermons, practically begging their congregations to stay away from the circus, the gladiatorial games, and the comedic stage.
Let me push back on this, because to a modern listener, this just sounds like the ultimate fun police.
So sure does.
Right. Were they just being prudish? Was this the ancient equivalent of a stuffy town council trying to ban dancing because they were worried about bad words and bawdy jokes?
It is very easy for modern readers to write them off as legalistic Puritans. But the sources clarify that their concern was far deeper than just being offended by crude humor.
Okay.
The Church Fathers recognized that the theater in the Greco-Roman world was not neutral entertainment. It was a liturgy of its own.
A liturgy?
Yes, it was a form of civic worship. Remember the context we established earlier.
Yeah.
These plays, including the birds, were performed at the festival of Dionysus.
Right, the religious festival.
The theater itself was built adjacent to a temple. The priest of Dionysus sat in the front row. Going to the theater meant participating in a religious ritual that actively normalized idolatry.
It normalized the exact things the bird celebrates. pride, manipulation, and utopian rebellion against the divine order.
Yes. John Chrysostom actually warned his congregation in Antioch that abandoning the church assembly to go to the theater was tantamount to abandoning Christ.
Wow, that is strong language.
He understood that human beings are shaped by the stories we immerse ourselves in. The theater, in his view, was a counter-liturgy that trained the human heart to love what God opposes.
Oh, wow.
If you spend hours laughing at a protagonist who succeeds through cruelty, cannibalism, and extreme arrogance, your soul is slowly being discipled to admire those traits.
Okay, so that is a really heavy historical reality.
It is.
But what do we do with this today? Are the sources telling you, the listener sitting in your car or at the gym right now, to cancel all your streaming subscriptions?
Right, what's the application?
Are we supposed to completely boycott movies, burn all satire, avoid fiction, and never watch a comedy again because it might be a competing liturgy?
This is where the nuanced conclusion of the source material is so incredibly helpful.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, the answer is an emphatic no. We don't need to retreat into cultural isolation.
Okay.
The irony is that the church fathers themselves were highly educated in classical Greek literature. They knew these plays backward and forward, and they used these cultural touchstones to highlight the superiority of Christ.
So they didn't ignore it?
Not at all.
Hmm.
The invitation for you, the listener, is not blind consumption or absolute boycott, but the practice of active discernment.
Active discernment. I really like that phrase. What does that actually look like in practice when I sit down to watch a movie or read a book?
It means you engage with culture intentionally. You can absolutely appreciate a brilliantly written comedy like The Birds.
Right.
You can marvel at the linguistic skill, the staging, and the historical satire. But you must keep your spiritual guard up. You aren't just letting the media wash over you. You are interrogating it.
Right.
You have to ask the critical questions.
Like what?
Like, what is this story actually teaching me to love? Is this piece of entertainment subtly making me admire pride, ruthlessness, and rebellion?
Wow.
Or can I look at this narrative, see the emptiness of the protagonist's victory, and recognize how it points out the futility of a life without God?
That is such a practical grid to run things through. You aren't
Yeah.
passively consuming content. You are actively engaging it with a biblical worldview.
Exactly.
And that leads right into the ultimate application of this entire time together. How can you take this 2,400-year-old play and use it today?
It's all about connection.
Because reading or even just understanding the core premise of The Birds actually affirms a very deep, very universal human ache.
It really does. If you strip away the brightly painted bird masks, the Greek grammar, and the ancient political jokes, the core desire of Pitheteris is incredibly relatable.
Yeah.
He just wants to find a perfect city. He wants a place with no lawsuits, no war, no corruption, no financial anxiety, and no pain.
Which is exactly what every single human being listening to this wants.
Yes.
We are all tired.
Yeah.
We all want a city of peace.
And that desire is not inherently wrong. The desire to build Cloudcuckooland is just a distorted, panic human attempt to build what the Bible calls the New Jerusalem.
Oh, wow.
The biblical narrative completely validates that longing. In Hebrews 11, the writer talks about the patriarchs longing for a better country, a heavenly one, a city whose designer and builder is God.
Right.
Revelation 21 promises a future city where God will dwell with man, where he will wipe away every tear, and where death, mourning, and pain shall be no more.
It's the ultimate hope.
The comedy of The Birds highlights the sheer desperation of that human longing and the tragedy of how our own attempts to build that city through political force or technological cleverness always end in tyranny or failure.
Because we try to do it ourselves.
Exactly. But the gospel provides the actual lasting fulfillment of that ache.
So here is the actionable mission for you today. You can use this conceptual framework as a brilliant bridge for gospel witness in your everyday life.
It's such a great tool for that.
Think about it. When you are at the coffee shop or the office discussing movies or politics or the latest utopian ideas with your friends, because everyone thinks their political party or their tech startup has the ultimate plan to fix the world.
Oh, definitely.
You can point out this dynamic. You can gently observe that every human attempt to build a perfect society through cleverness or force eventually collapses under the weight of human sin.
It always does.
It either becomes a brutal tyranny or it turns into a joke. But acknowledging that failure isn't pessimistic.
Not at all.
It opens the door to talk about the true king, The one who doesn't build a massive wall in the clouds to keep us out, but who redeems our scattered, broken world with unending grace.
It reframes the cultural conversation completely.
Hmm.
It shows that the Christian hope isn't just some ethereal fantasy in the clouds.
Yeah.
It's the solid reality that the human heart has been desperately searching for since at least 414 BC.
That is incredible. We have covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have.
Let's briefly recap this journey. We started in a hilarious, noise-filled Athenian festival, looking at a city exhausted by a brutal war. We explored how Aristophanes used the linguistic tricks of the parabasis, shifting from aorist to present tense to mentally pull his audience into a shared rebellion.
Yeah, that grammar shift.
We saw the profound worldview collisions, the chaotic hatched bird gods versus the ordered spoken creation of Genesis, and the quote-unquote successful blockade of Cloudcuckooland versus the divine judgment of the Tower of Babel.
We also unpacked the stark, life-altering difference between the upward, grasping, violent pride of the play's hero and the downward, self-emptying humility of Christ in Philippians 2.
Right.
We explored true unity through the lens of Pentecost, and we took to heart the ancient warnings of the early church fathers, learning to view our own modern entertainment not with fear, but through a lens of active, faithful discernment.
This analysis proves that the birds is so much more than just an ancient script. It's a mirror reflecting our own persistent desires for power and peace.
It truly is.
And I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over as you go about your day.
Okay.
Aristophanes wrote a brilliant, enduring comedy about humanity trying to build a wall in the sky to become gods. He was entirely unaware that 400 years later, the true God would become a man.
Wow.
And he didn't come to build a wall in the clouds to lock us out. He came to tear the temple veil in two, from top to bottom, and invite us into a kingdom built entirely on humility, sacrifice, and love.
That's beautiful.
Keep reading widely, keep engaging thoughtfully with the culture around you, but always do it with an open Bible and a discerning heart.